So, Sandra, what's your take on this topic? In other words, we've got someone who's amazing, and there are roles out there that all look kind of interesting, or at least a share of them do. In your experience, is it always clear what role is right for me?
Well, it's no, it's not going to be clear most of the time. And the reason for that is because one of the main reasons that executive level job search is very different than all the other job searches out there, that everything transactional, we're just talking to 3% of the org chart, okay, is that they're not likely to know exactly what they need to put in that job description to describe the job. So,
Mhm.
in other words, what are the two portions of a job description? Duties, responsibilities, and then the experience necessary to do it successfully. So here's the difference in the org chart. When you're at transactional level, you've got a hiring manager who knows exactly which skills and experiences they're looking for. They've done the job, they're an expert at the job, or somehow they're an expert. They've probably filled 3 positions like that this year. Okay. As for me as a recruiter, I would go out and recruit those people and submit the top 3 matches, and one would get the job. But at the executive level, first of all, you've got 6 or 7 different stakeholders. There's not one unilateral decision hiring manager most of the time. It's stakeholders making a consensus decision. And I would sit down with all the stakeholders. Hardly ever do they agree on background, for one thing.
Mhm.
And here's the thing. If they really knew the duties and responsibilities necessary to do the job, it wouldn't be an executive level role. So when I go out and I'd recruit, I realized that a lot of times the person they hired did not match the background they said. And I realized that, these job descriptions are nothing but a big giant guess. They're a big guess. I mean, back in the day when we had to put together a job description, we used to have to do old school AI, which was copy and paste stuff from Indeed. Okay. Fill
Yeah.
out a giant wish list of everything that we wanted, knowing full well that when they hired the person, it's probably not going to look like that. And then if it's a real executive level role for an important company, you had to intentionally be vague or misleading because there's certain information about the company you don't want out there. Like, well, so we're Capital One and we're wondering what it's going to look like if we acquire Discover. It's like, no, you don't put information out there. You don't say, so we're looking for a CISO because we've got some big security breaches looming. You don't say that stuff at the executive level. So sometimes we want to intentionally make things not look like what they are if the company's not confidential or something like that. So that's one of the reasons that at the executive level, you will intentionally run yourself in a circle of misguided effort if you customize your resume to the job posting.
Right. Yeah.
Unlike at the transactional level, you absolutely should customize your resume to a job posting. So that's why understanding how executive job search is different and understanding why if you're going to submit your resume to a position, there's no way to really know what's behind the curtain on that, but there is a secret to your success. And that secret to your success is to make sure that not only the applicant tracking system that's reading it with AI, but the human screener that looks at it for 6.25 seconds is going to immediately know your value proposition. And
Mhm.
if they do immediately know your value proposition, let me tell you, if you lead with the problem you solve and they didn't actually put that in the job description, they are immediately like almost 100% sold on you because you couldn't have customized to that. That means you're authentic. That
Mhm.
means now within that first 2 seconds, their brain is going to switch into self-confirming bias. That's when you go through the document and you're basically just looking for evidence to prove yourself right versus looking for evidence just to get rid of this person.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to make sure that you know your value proposition first. Because if And just to flip the switch a little bit, if I was a recruiter and I reached out to somebody, because that's if you want to get in front of recruiters, I noticed somebody mentioned that. If you want to get in front of recruiters, you have to make sure they find you, at least the true executive ones. They have to find you. Just going to them is just going to put you in a file. Okay. Um, for the most part. Okay. But if they find you and you're authentic with your value proposition, you might actually get somewhere. Either A, wow, yes, you're perfect for this job, or B, because executive recruiters tend to specialize, wait, I know a better one you're better for. Because if you try and play the game, oh, I want to kind of figure out what they want, and then I'll be that, that's also going to send you in a bunch of activity that's not going to get you anywhere. So
Hmm.
then that resume, when they say, hey, I'd love to submit you to my client, that's the third thing that has to go right. They have to find you. You have to have a very value-centric conversation. And then when they see your resume, when you send it to them, it better match that. Because if your resume is not consistent with your talking points, they're going to immediately not, they're going to go to the next one. You're not going to hear from that recruiter again.